Well, Douglas, really pleased to be sitting here with you today, and we're going to be talking about Creation of the Gods 1, for which you were the visual effects supervisor, right?
Yes.
So I actually did watch the film and really enjoyed it. I watched it partly for just the nostalgia of all these Chinese legends that I grew up with, but also in part for Mr. Fei's chest muscles, and I have to say, neither disappointed. So I enjoyed it. It was thoroughly entertaining for me. What about yourself? Did you enjoy the film?
Yeah. When you work on a film for so long, you kind of know too much about it. So it was great when I finally saw it, and I could digest what the whole thing was together with the music and the sound and everything. And I felt very good about it. It felt epic, and I don't often get to work on films that feel epic.
So here's the thing about this film. I thought it was very localized culturally in terms of the characters and a lot of the settings. There wasn't a lot of background given about them, which I think for the Chinese audience, not much explanation is needed because we grew up with this. But from your perspective and some of your non-Chinese colleagues' perspective, how did you find it? Was it difficult to comprehend?
Yeah, that's the sort of instantly being into the story. It's that the Chinese people can bring to that story. Exactly what you're saying was missing for me. So I had to start by understanding where some of the characters come from, like Ne Jia and his wheels and things like that. Up until I was learning about those characters, I didn't realize there was a presence, like even walking down the street, where you would see indications of where they would use a reference to those characters or the stylization of how Kunlun was represented or something.
What for you were some of the most difficult aspects in terms of the special effects for this film?
Yeah, well, the scale of what Wershan wanted was pretty monumental. So it did give me pause to think about taking this on, because there were some very large things that we had to do. And from a practical aspect of just setting things up, this used the most amount of square meters of like blue screen cloth that I have ever experienced or witnessed on any set. And so a new way of handling that had to be conceived. It sounds pretty mundane, but we had...
How much blue screen?
Oh, it was like 500 meters in a straight line, but all of that had to be moved around on a daily basis. That's just the exterior stuff. The interior stuff was more like 1,000 linear meters of blue screen, maybe 2,000. It was a lot of material. It ended up involving like 30 equipment drivers and all these pieces of equipment, but it was very flexible. We were able to move from one location to another in a matter of hours with all this material. And in fact, I've not seen anybody else do this on another production. It's just a scale.
Epic.
Yeah, it was epic, yes.
And what about in terms of the characters and the setting? Was there anything in particular that you thought was very difficult to bring alive?
Right. Well, anytime you have a creature that doesn't exist and it's a different size.
Which is most of this film.
Yeah, so when they start interacting with people, it gets very complicated. You have to figure out how that creature actually moves. You have to figure out sort of their mentality, and you have to prepare technically to carry and move a human in a way that fits with the animation and the nature of that character. This involves mechanical devices called motion bases to put these people on, and it has to be done safely.
The other thing that must have been difficult is sort of balancing Chinese traditional aesthetics and Chinese legends with what the modern audience can accept.
So that was part of my concerns also. One of the things that happens with any type of conceptual creature is the person drawing it doesn't actually know if they've drawn it so it could actually walk or fly. And those problems have to be designed, the solutions to those problems have to be designed into the structure. So the Taote, for instance, when it first got it, it wasn't able to take any steps like could only do little baby steps. So we had to figure out how to make the whole system work, and all the flying stuff. There's also a lot of artwork that is really impressive that was done on this movie. And so as part of the process with our art director is to take these impressionistic images and make them into a real thing. And it is an issue. We always have to sort of ground it when you're looking at the image, is does that thing look like it is part of the world that the people right next to it are part of?
Yeah, I remember seeing some of the filming clips, and there was one of Legends, the actor for Legends, you know, the green
Yes,
winged,
yeah.
monster. I don't know what we call him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about how to give him a sense of weight as he's flying.
Yes.
So something like that must have been quite difficult to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that is an experimental process, and we started that really early too. The final judge of that is the director on doing that, and we tried different tests to see if is this too light, is this too heavy, what are the parameters. One of the things about Legenza that is completely different than other creatures that fly, and a lot of people who see the movie won't realize this, but the wings are designed from fish fins. And the structure of the arms in the membranes are actually very flexible. It's only the leading edge that is stiff. So we used goldfish and stuff like that to study their fin motion for that. So the behavior is something that Wurshan was specific that what he didn't want. He didn't want a bat and he didn't want a bird. And a lot of our tests would go into that area of bird-like or bat-like. We weren't doing Batman, so it had to look significantly different.
I remember you said in an interview before that water can actually be one of the toughest elements to recreate.
Yeah.
What did you think of the results of that scene where Zifa lands in the Yellow River?
Yeah, I was concerned about that whole process. That has an unknown quality to it when you start shooting. You don't know exactly what's going to happen because you're dealing with an actor in water. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, and you need to have that turbulence around them, and you don't know how that's going to integrate with the wider scene. There was a lot of photography done in different custom-built water tanks in Qingdao. Poor Jifa and others spent a lot of time in the water just as winter was starting in Qingdao. So, yeah, there's a lot of pieces that go into the film that you end up with. Who has designed a water tank that is with turbulent water? What color is the water going to be in this river? And how do you integrate it with this overall view of what the bigger river is going to be? You have to start with some sort of final images at the end and sort of work your way back into what the details are.
But do you think these kind of visuals, this sort of very uniquely Chinese context for this film, could it have a place in the international cinema?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's really a fresh view for Western audiences of a lot of things. I even got feedback from the vendors, for instance, in Canada, said they really appreciated working on these designs because they were fresh designs. They weren't standard Hollywood type designs. They came from a completely different direction. So it is enjoyable for people to get fresh input and from different directions.
So what was the experience like for you working with Chinese visual artists? Were there differences in approaches? Or?
It feels pretty similar to me. Besides, for me, frequently a language problem. Yes, I really don't speak Mandarin. So that is a huge handicap on my part. It was the language issue, which is very delicate when you're talking about artistic stuff. There's nothing that's really black and white, and it's all like a color that's an emotion. And you're trying to move forward through this emotional world of color and make it practical. It's really hard for translators to be able to pick out the intent of what you're saying, and in fact you have no idea how it got translated. So this is also an experience that's taken me a long time to figure out that sometimes you have to sidestep the language and go directly to artwork to figure out where to go.
Well, it's never too late to start.
Yes.
You've got time in China
Yes.
this time.
Yes, thank you.
So looking at the bigger picture, the Chinese film market this year exceeded 20 billion yuan, right? So that's more than 2.8 billion US dollars. So Chinese domestic films have been quite successful. What's your outlook for the Chinese films on the international global stage?
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to increase, especially because of the success in the Chinese box office. There will be a lot more films made. There's going to be films that just click with international audiences.
Yeah.
So it's there right in the future, and it's a really good sign that the Chinese box office is doing so well. It's a good sign for actually North America and Europe too. It's very positive for the movie making industry in general.
Creation of the Gods, it's been hailed as quite a breakthrough for the Chinese visual effects industry, and the people are saying that, critics are saying that this film's taken it to a whole new level. Would you agree? What do you think some of the breakthroughs are?
I don't know about a real breakthrough. It's an evolution, and I see that evolution happening in a lot of movies. Like Wandering Earth, and there's some entire animated feature films, Monster Hunt and things like that. They're all part of this advancement, and crew members and producers and directors getting used to these sort of large, complex projects, and that infrastructure being built. So this is another step along the way, and I don't know how. There's a group of artists that have all been exposed to this, and crew members, and that information will go into other productions as that crew sort of disperses amongst the Chinese film industry. But a lot of it is just taking what everybody knows already and just doing it slightly differently and in a different combination.
But as you know, there's always lots of different opinions, and there are also some people who think that the special effects can be distracting. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I hate it when there's visual effects and there's no point in having visual effects shots. It's just like hubbub and action, and the poor audience is stuck in their seats watching things happen on the screen, and there's no reason to have some of those shots. Every shot in a movie should be part of telling the overall story.
And just finally, so we still got the second and third installments of the Function trilogy to come. Can you reveal any surprises to us that we can expect, but not too much, because then it won't be a surprise? Those people would be very mad at me if I said much of anything. I will say there's a lot. The shots, what's going on with seeing the various people, it is actually much more complicated. Movie 2 and 3 are visual effects wise very complicated, and really take another step in the visual effects world to complete them. Well, you've definitely drummed up the anticipation without telling us anything. We definitely look forward to the future films, and thank you so much for speaking with us, especially on the heels of your jet lag and just arriving here.
Right. Okay.
Really appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.